What's up, Facebook? All right, I wanted to do a series on Jiu-Jitsu principles for life, talking about various principles that you gain through Jiu-Jitsu that can be applied to life as well. The first one I have on here is humility, and humility's not as much of a principle as it is should be a fruit of Jiu-Jitsu. And it's really actually even a starting place for Jiu-Jitsu. You have to have this in order to get good, all right? And once again, before I get going, you guys, I always appreciate your likes and your shares. And if you like these videos, please share them with others as they may be helpful. And also, please interact. You feel free to comment. It always helps me when you do, and I can learn from you that way. And gets me thinking more about all of these things, which is good for me. It's one of the reasons why I do this. So please feel free to interact, like, and share these videos. But back to humility. So in Jiu-Jitsu, the point is to grapple until somebody taps out. So somebody's always tapping. So humility is a big part of what we do. If you're training with the right people, there's going to be time for you to tap out all the time, right? When you first come into class, there's going to be plenty of people who can tap you out. And that's a humbling thing. Nobody wants to tap out. Nobody wants to give up. But it's the smart thing to do. You tap out, you learn from it, and then you kind of recollect, try it again, and that's how you get better. That's how you climb the ladder in Jiu-Jitsu, through that process. So not everybody, however, I don't know, not everybody really accepts it maybe the way that they should. So sometimes when people get tapped out, they make excuses for it. They say, I wasn't trying my hardest, or excuses like that to kind of just like pretend like it didn't happen maybe, or just avoiding the fact that they got beat, the reality that they got beat. Some people are like that. Others may fight to the death not to tap out, which just basically means when you get them in a submission, they try and fight with all of their might not to tap out, and they're using all their strength. And in that situation, I tell people a lot of times, if somebody has you in a fully extended arm bar and you haven't tapped out, like you can't get out and you haven't tapped out yet, there's only one reason. It's not because you're that tough. It's because your training partner doesn't want to hurt you. It's because they're being nice, right? And it's foolish not to tap out in that situation, right? So some people like that, they fight with everything they have not to tap out. And it's just a pride thing, and we all do this at one point or another in our training. We all kind of go through these things. The process of humility is it's a growth. You grow more in humility through Jiu-Jitsu. And I think a big part of it is separating your identity from what happens on the mat, right? Because you tapped out doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean that you're not good at Jiu-Jitsu. It doesn't mean that you stink and should never return. It doesn't mean people are going to think differently about you. It doesn't mean people are going to laugh at you. It doesn't mean any of those things when you tap out. So, but we're the only ones that hold on to that internally and believe that. So we have to learn to separate our identity from what happens on the mat. Good days and bad days. Just because you go out and you have a great day on the mat doesn't mean you're a better person that day. Doesn't mean you're necessarily better than you were yesterday. Doesn't mean people are going to think about you any differently than they did yesterday. None of those things really change. We all have good days. We all have bad days. And we just have to accept who we are despite those things. And through that humility, you can actually learn way more, right? You're paying attention to what's happening and not to what you think people are thinking or what you think people care about, which just totally changes your mindset when you're rolling around. So being able to separate your identity from what happens on the mat is a huge part of jiu-jitsu. It's a huge part of the learning process. But that's also a huge part of growth in life, is we tend to stake our identity on so many different things. Sometimes it's like this one thing, like, I know people who train jiu-jitsu tend to like stake their identity on that, and you don't want to do that. But there's many other things that people stake their identity on. And humility is kind of learning to separate from that kind of mindset in whatever it is that you do, right? Humility is having a true and honest estimate of yourself, and humility is also putting the interest of others above your own, right? Not an easy thing to do. In jiu-jitsu, how do you do that? You keep a true and honest estimate of yourself. You're not the best in the world. You're just another guy at the gym. You have good days, you have bad days. Putting other people's interest above your own. Instead of just going out there and destroying everybody all the time, or trying to destroy everybody all the time, you can actually serve them and help them to learn better as their training partner. And that doesn't mean that you take it easy on people all the time. It just means that you always give opportunities to learn. If you do tap somebody out once or twice, maybe the same way, you kind of explain what happened and maybe give them some advice on how to defend it. Or sometimes you give them opportunities to take advantage of things. There's many different ways that you can serve people as you roll around. And how you roll might change from person to person so that you can serve them better. Sometimes, you need to step it up in order to serve people properly, but other times you need to tone it down to serve them properly. So, and humility is the practice of doing those things. So now, like humility in life, this can apply in so many different ways. Whatever you do, whether it's at work or at home, or if you're in like any kind of leadership position, not being a positional leader where you're like pointing fingers down at people and telling them how to do it, but trying to be their friend, trying to lead them in a way that is that they want to actually follow you, requires humility, because you have to kind of step down, and you have to be a part of what they're doing. You have to listen to them and even take advice and sometimes criticism from the people that you're leading, so that you can actually lead them better, which requires humility. So humility should be a fruit of jiu-jitsu, but not everybody practices with that mindset and allows for the fruit of humility to shine through jiu-jitsu, so that they can actually get better faster and help others even more through this fruit of humility. Same thing in life. We have to allow the things that we do in life to keep us humble and to keep us real. As we grow in jiu-jitsu, as your belt gets higher, as your knowledge gets greater, as your technique gets sharper, it could be easy to get puffed up in that. But what happens is that you start getting too puffed up, you're going to start avoiding people that could possibly beat you, or make you look bad, and make you feel that, once again, that your identity is different than you thought it was. So when they challenge your identity, you avoid them, and that's going to stunt your learning curve. You're not going to learn as fast. You're not going to get as good as you could be, because you're avoiding certain people, because you're stuck on this identity that you're creating for yourself. So as you get wiser in life, it's the same thing. As you excel in anything, at work, at home, in school, whatever it may be, other sports, it's the same thing. If you start creating an identity around those things and your achievements, then you're going to get puffed up in those achievements, and ultimately that's actually going to restrict you from learning and growing and improving and getting even better. And then also even having people that want to learn from you and kind of like follow you in a sense, the path that you've kind of created, or the path that you went down, or the path that you can teach others. People aren't going to want to follow that path because you're not really leading by example. So humility is like, it's a huge thing, and it's very challenging. Some people are by nature more humble than others, and others it takes more practice, but we all need to continue in it and strive to be humble, and just evaluate ourselves whether this is something that we're practicing or not, is very important. So humility is a jiu-jitsu principle, as I said before, a little bit more of a fruit of jiu-jitsu that we can apply to everyday life, and no matter what we do, whether it be work, school, friendships, marriage, any of these things, other sports, other hobbies that we're into. If we have this mindset of humility, keeping an honest estimate of who we are, not wrapping our identity up in achievements, not puffing ourselves up in those achievements and accomplishments, putting the interest of others above your own, you'll start to create a nice little community of people that surround you, that want to learn from you and want to follow you, honestly, because a good leader is humble. It's a great character of a good leader. So I would advise practicing humility, and evaluating yourself, whether or not that is something that you currently do practice, or whether you feel like you're creating your identity in different things and getting puffed up in that identity. We'll talk more about some principles of jiu-jitsu that help in everyday life. But I started with humility, even though it's more of a fruit than a principle, because it's a starting place. In jiu-jitsu, it's where you got to start. The sooner you put on a humble attitude in jiu-jitsu, the better it's going to be for you, and actually the faster you're going to start learning. So it's kind of like a starting position, whether it be jiu-jitsu or anything else. I think it's just a great place to start. If you really want to be a life learner and you want to continue to grow and excel in different areas in your life, then I think humility is super important. If you really want to find success in life, then humility is where to start. So yeah, thank you for listening. What's up, Ian, Nadia, Crystal, Dave? Thanks for watching, you guys. Once again, if you like this, please actually like it, click the button, and then even maybe share it with your friends. And your comments are always welcome and appreciated. I love interaction, and I know on these videos I'm just kind of talking, but feel free to interact and help me out. All right, I appreciate it. And if you're interested in training in jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, mixed martial arts, any of those things, we do offer classes for men, women, and children, and we offer 2 free classes. So if you'd like to get hooked up with 2 free classes, you can visit clinchacademy.com or call 301-682-8589, and we would love to hook you up. And yes, Dave, you can rewatch this. I will be posting it in just a moment. Thank you, guys. Let's have a great week. Take care.